Another Football Podcast. Welcome. It's Premier League week. Boys, this is the time of the season where everyone on YouTube, or otherwise, does whole season, whole table Premier League predictions based on nothing but guesses. And we are on Just Another Football Podcast are incredibly original, so we're going to do exactly that. Are you ready?
Just about, yeah. Can't wait. I was actually buzzing for the championship starting weekend just gone. I was like, I'm so ready for this. And I watched a bit of Leeds, watched a bit of Leicester.
I watched the Leicester game, pretty much all of it.
I needed to be eased into the championship. You know, it had to be like a ex-Premier League team from the previous season. You know, couldn't go full on Rotherham versus whoever. Wasn't quite there yet, but I enjoyed it. It was good. And then I've been seeing the odd bit of the Women's World Cup as well. Mm-hmm. USA are out, and England scrape by, and Ireland are out sadly as well.
The way the US went out has to be potentially like behind Ghana against Uruguay in 2010. That's the most heartbreaking way that I've ever seen a team go out. I don't remember any
you
other,
say heartbreaking, I say hilarious.
Yeah, fair. We won it 4 times and everyone wants us to lose. That's fair. Like, we all want Man City not to win the league, but are probably predicting Man City to win the league. It's the same with the US Women's National Team, right? And Harry, we genuinely haven't spoken to Harry in months since the last time we recorded. Because when we did our planning session, Harry was away.
I wasn't there. Yeah, I wasn't committed to the course. Just to let everyone know a secret. Yeah. Exactly.
He won the prediction league last season. He won't this time.
Exactly. You know, I sort of was busy working on my predictions, mate. What can I say? But yeah, been doing well. Keeping up with other sports, keeping me ticking over. But glad to have the football back, and I'm going for the three-peat this year, like the Man City, 3 titles in a row, 3 just another football podcast prediction titles in a row.
Go on, because you were giving us we all saw each other's predictions, and Harry was giving every one of us Tom Pelters. I did. Why? Well, who do you have in 20th? Go on.
I don't remember giving you guys particularly pelters over who you had 20th, in fairness. I actually felt like we sort of roundly concurred with sort of some of the teams at the bottom.
Yep.
I've got Sheffield United 20th. I struggle to see a world in which they don't get relegated. I know that's sort of a pessimistic view to take, but kind of looking at the business they've done so far, including signing a player from Arsenal in Austin Trusty, doesn't really move the needle for me, and they've lost their best player in Dye from last season. So, I struggle to see a world in which they stay up. I mean, if you want me to put a positive spin on it, I didn't think they'd stay up last season. Last time they were in the Premier League, and they actually did quite well in their first season. So, sorry, Fergal's just frozen on my screen. I'm really struggling.
It's such a good freeze.
But yeah, I think it's going to be difficult for Sheffield United. I mean, if you want a silver lining, the last time they were in the Premier League, they put up a pretty good account of themselves in the first season.
Ninth place.
And then the second sort of COVID impacted season, they did struggle. I just think that particular season, if you look at it, they were back in the Premier League for the first time in 15 years. This time there isn't that kind of, it's not a sort of joyous occasion to be there. There's a sort of cloud hanging over the club with the ownership situation at the minute. I just think that needed to be resolved, and it hasn't, and it leaves them on the back foot. And the business they've done, I think, leaves them short.
Fergal, what have you gone for 20th?
Yeah, I've gone Sheffield United 20th as well. I mean, well, I think most of us have Luton Town down there as well. But the reason I don't know, Luton Town are just a bit more interesting. I don't know if that's there's just something about Sheffield. I'm just not thinking they're going to do well. They're about to sell Sander Berge to Burnley.
Yeah.
Which is just bizarre. Unless they have a really good plan as to how they're going to respend it or spend that money in place and dies, as we were saying. But yeah, it just doesn't. I am worried for them, like straight off the bat. It's just not the right signs, and I don't know, just not as interesting either. Which isn't necessarily a. That's just me not being interested in Sheffield United. So I've paid less of attention to them compared to some of the other teams. It might maybe maybe they'll come good, but so far their business has been very uninspiring, and they were uninspiring to begin with. So
Yeah,
don't give them too much hope.
So George, you agree with the two of them, right, about Sheffield United?
Not bottom, but yeah, I agree with the general sentiment. I put them in 19th. It was a toss of the coin between Luton and Sheffield for me. I mean, with the warning signs for
that won't go down
Sheffield
well
United.
with the city of Sheffield. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Sheffield United.
Sheffield
yeah.
United. Yep.
Apologies, Wednesday fans.
Yes.
Also don't care. So, but in terms of Sheffield, the reason why I've got United, the reason I've got them above Luton, is simply because of just that little bit of Premier League experience that a few of the players have. You know, they've got quite a few players that were in the squad last time they were in the Premier League. The reason why they're in 19th is because the majority of those players aren't good enough for the Premier League. So there's a balance of they've got experience in the Premier League, but they're clearly not good enough. I do think they'll be better defensively than Luton. I worry about them going forward, but a couple points here and there with draws or 1-0 win, I think will keep them above Luton. I think there's going to be I've got Luton bottom, and I think it's going to be almost record low. Not quite Derby. I don't think anyone's going to be near Derby ever. But I think it's going to be under 20, and I think it's going to be potentially under sort of around 15, 16 points.
I could see that.
I just think
I still want it to happen.
No, I don't.
I think if Luton come bottom, they'll come bottom, and it'll be ugly. In truth, and I think if Sheffield United are bottom, that I for some reason don't see it being quite as bad. But I feel like Luton, there's a wider range of outcomes. I still can't see them staying up, but I could see them getting 18th, and I could also see them finishing 20th and absolute rock bottom. 10 points.
The quality.
Go on.
Sorry, no, I was going to say the quality of the Championship last year wasn't as strong historically as when Fulham go up and whatnot. When Fulham come up and have Mitrovic up front. I know you don't rate him, Ali, but I
changed my mind on him last season.
Yeah, it's a proven striker. Neither of these two teams have anywhere near to Premier League quality from what I can see. And to be fair, Luton might be a bit of a wild card. Like Harry says, I think it could be ugly. Could get a few scalps, but not convinced.
I have nothing to add about Sheffield United, really. I do have them relegated, but I have them in 18th. So I'll explain why later. But Luton in 20th, because their home form last season was worse than their away form. They got promotion because of their away form. Obviously, what's very interesting about their ground and relative to, did you know that the away end looks at someone else's bathroom or whatever, and one of their players played 5 divisions with them, blah, 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 blah. But the very interesting thing is that they don't have undersoil heating, which is actually a Premier League requirement, but the Premier League let it go for this season. And if they sail, they'll install undersoil heating. But that will be very interesting in December because there's a bunch of fixtures with Premier League Championship quality teams and relegation teams, and we might see some games postponed because of a waterlogged pitch.
Yeah, we've got them in December actually.
Yeah, Arsenal is one of them. I think Man City is another.
Yeah.
And they're very close by, I believe, if I remember correctly.
They'll be doing a rain dance,
What's that?
Yeah, they will
have a rain dance.
Yeah, rain dance.
Come December.
Yeah, we'll see Sean Dyche again standing with a shirt and whatever and grinning.
Nothing wrong with it. Up those ankles in water.
Yeah, play on.
Lovely. So the worms will love this. Yeah. Their away form helped them last season against much worse teams, and the gap between the Championship teams that played last season and the Premier League teams that got played this season is very high.
So they'll get some weird results, but not enough to keep them up. And I think they'll be in 20th by a long distance. But I love what they're doing. I love how they've carried themselves, and the ownership stories and everything about them is just very charming. Obviously,
I feel like they've,
but 20th, unfortunately,
they're
well set to get promotion again next season, but they're not ready.
that's what I was about to say. Yeah, I feel like they had this. They've done the same sort of thing that Nottingham Forest did. They've came up maybe a season earlier than they were kind of expecting to, and then they've had to. They haven't got a Premier League team, but they've gone the opposite way, the more sustainable way. And instead of trying to buy a new Premier League team, they're going. We're gonna plan for.
About
it
that,
does
sorry.
look like
What can you tell us about Chidozie Ogbene very quickly?
I'll come to that.
Okay,
Let me
go
finish
for it.
my point.
Yeah.
Expert
hosting.
Oh yeah, don't worry. Look what shirt I'm wearing. Like, of course I'm gonna come to the Irish guy, right?
Of course.
But yeah, they're planning basically like Norwich were doing, that they're gonna go down, but they're gonna be well equipped then to deal with that in the Championship and come straight back up. That's what it seems like. And I don't know how you feel about that if you're a Luton Town fan. It's always very bit precarious. Norwich never quite done it, and then seem to have regretted it now. But I think for Luton, in terms of sustainability, as it does make sense for them to do that and then come back up. And the way they've been going, they probably will end up being like making smart signings, and one of them being Chidozie Ogbene. Chidozie, I actually don't know how he's going to do for Luton, just based on, because for Ireland he plays up front. For Rotherham he played as like a right wing back, but he's like incredibly pacey. He gave who did he give a hard time of it? Theo Hernandez. Theo Hernandez of AC Milan could not handle Chidozie Ogbene. He is full of pace and power, decent in the box, like able to sniff out a goal. I wouldn't say his finishing is a strength of his, but it's not a weakness. But I'm interested to see just how they deploy him, if they use him on the right wing. I see. Is it a right wing back? But I think he's more of a forward. I like him on the right for Ireland, up front. Yeah, really excited to see it. I was surprised he got a Premier League move. I thought maybe upper Championship, but for his performance for Ireland, he's so comfortable at international level. So I feel like he should be. He should do okay for Luton. I feel like that is a suitable level for him.
I feel like the idea from their wingbacks is to be incredibly attacking. Grant Giles signed for them, and he had 11 assists in the Championship last season. So with Middlesbrough, of course, who did super well. So that's going to be an interesting thing. I don't think any other team plays that like pure 3-5-2 kind of system. 2 number 8s behind 2 strikers, like 2 big strikers. So that'll be interesting. 19th, George, you had Luton Town. Sorry, you had Sheffield United. This was Luton 20th. Harry, what have we gone for?
I was Luton.
Luton. Okay.
I don't have loads to add on Luton other than kind of what I said already, that they could surprise a few. They could get a few scalps. It's interesting you mentioned about the home form. I wasn't aware of that last season, and I think Forest are a good example of a team that you need good home form if you haven't necessarily got the requisite quality. You need that sort of crowd and those home games to be kind of a 12th man for you.
Yeah.
And if their home form was patchy last year, I can't see them getting many points on the road, I must be honest. As much as they did last year, it's a tough ask in the Premier League.
The other point would be that their home atmosphere is going to be actually super fun. Because just like pure excitement, right? But yeah, we'll see how it goes, I suppose. It could bode well for them if their home form is actually good, and it makes it tricky. And their away form is nice, so that adds up. Fergal, who have you gone for?
Some contrast. I was Luton as well. It's some contrast between the promoted sides last season, just in their spending, on this season. Yeah. But yeah, no, Luton, yeah, it's sort of exactly what Harry said there. Like I really hope they do well. It'd be great to see it, but I can't see them staying up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So I had, I'm going to start with 19th place here. I had Luton 20th. I had Sheffield United 18th. I have Everton 19th. I had Everton rock bottom last season. It baffles me that they didn't go down last season. I think it's an absolute miracle. But they won't hold on this season. They are the most toxic club internally in the Premier League, and I think that automatically condemns them. I don't see where goals are come from. Terrible window, obviously, because they don't have any money.
Yeah.
And just a very bad squad. A very, very bad squad. And a terrible owner. Manager's okay, but he's gonna leave. He's going to walk. That's just how I see it going. They'll be 20th in late October, and then he'll be like, I'll call it quits. This is terrible.
No.
Yeah.
Not biased at all. Not biased at all.
Are we gonna? Will we just talk about Everton now? Then,
we all have them in the bottom half, so this part of the predictions.
Yeah,
I suppose we can.
I just think Everton are. I think under Sean Dyche, I think they'll improve a hell of a lot. I just look at their team and their first 11, and I think it's all right.
Nah.
They've got Pickford, Patterson / Coleman, Keane, Tarkowski. I back Alan Godfrey as well. I back Allardyce to get a good showing out of those.
Allardyce. Yeah, but that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Sean Dyche is going to leave. Sam Allardyce is going to come in. And
Sean Dyche, he's known to do this. What manager will be there from a period of the season onwards?
Yep. Caretaker.
It's got history.
Sorry. So yeah, Sean Dyche. But like that back four, I think is like the two young fullbacks. I think would be good, and then they've got two centre backs that Sean Dyche has worked with before. Midfield of Onana, who he's been linked away all summer. He's good. Decore, Idris Gay, Garner, they're all like hard-working midfielders, exactly what Sean Dyche wants. McNeil, who he's worked with before, Iwobi, who's probably been one of their better players, Danjuma, who's a solid winger, and Damari Gray. The key thing is if Calvert-Lewin stays fit. However, Tom Cannon, who has sadly turned down Ireland, but he's an up-and-coming striker that maybe he can get the goals for them. And Neil Maupay's there as well to, I don't know, score against Arsenal maybe, if you're lucky.
Neil Maupay is a League One striker.
It's just not true. I fundamentally disagree with everything Ali has said, other than potentially a toxic board. They've got one of the in terms of a bottom half side, probably the best manager in the Premier League.
Sure. For
that situation, they've got a team that's lend itself to his style of play with big physical centre backs, physical midfielders. That Decore is a threat going forward. Just Gay is a fantastic ball-winning midfielder. Well, fantastic. He's a good Premier League ball-winning midfielder. Onana has rightfully been linked, to some fairly, reputable clubs. They've got a really great team. They've got a really great manager. I've got them in 12th. I think they're the best of the rest. What I would say is between Wolves and West Ham, which is sort of roughly 16th to 11th, that for me is very interchangeable. Like that, it doesn't really matter where you put them. On top of that, I think everyone remembers the obviously the relegation battle because of the final day, which obviously matters that they went to the final day, potentially being relegated. What you've got to remember though is they had a manager in Frank Lampard who couldn't get the team working for him. set them up extremely badly in order for Sean Dyche to come in. And then on top of that, they're going into the next season with a lot of momentum, a manager who's been there, done it before. And to be honest, the teams around them weren't far off. Nottingham Forest 2 points above them, Bournemouth 3 points above them. Let's remember Bournemouth don't have the same manager anymore either.
Yeah,
that did
that.
that.
Well.
Yes, West Ham are undoubtedly going to improve. Wolves and Crystal Palace, they're unconvincing. I don't think it's a given that... I certainly don't think they'll go down. I think it's far from that. And I don't think it's a given that they'll be at the bottom half of the real bottom of the Premier League either.
Wow.
I'll throw some stats your way as well. Under stats, expected points had Everton last season in... Oh, they don't do it in a nice easy way. That's 17th, 18th, 19th. No, sorry, 17th.
You can sort
16th,
it by
15th.
on understat. You can sort it by expected points.
You can sort it, but they don't do the numbers for you. 17th, 16th, 15th. They had them in 14th on expected points. And
Sure.
in Everton's pre-season, they've only conceded 1 goal in 5 and they've gone unbeaten.
They also played Neon, Wigan, Bolton, Stoke, and Sporting 1-0, which...
Sporting, they beat Sporting 1-0.
Maybe Sporting 1-0. Yeah.
I think Sean Dyche is going to work his magic and be like his old Burnley side and just be solid, safe by... a couple months to go, they'll look safe and they'll roll over the line nice and easy.
Where's Everton for you, Harry?
I've got them 17th. I'm more with you. I don't think they're very good. I think that he's a good manager, but I'm looking at their results under him. He was there from February onwards last season. Very patchy. They had a couple of high-profile wins, obviously against Arsenal and that big win at Brighton, but other than that, it was kind of a lot of inconsistency. So, I know what you're saying about under Lampard, they were no good and weren't in a great position, but he was there for, nearly 20 games there, and they were alright, but they weren't great. And they've not really signed anyone. They've signed Danjuma, who is a good player, and I think adds something to their attack.
And
but
Ashley Young on a free.
Ashley Young on a free... Not really an attacker at this stage in his career. I just look at it and think they're going to struggle to score goals. I know what you're saying, like you could get them organised and make them tough to beat, and he did that fairly well. They drew quite a lot of games, but I think, again, I'm looking at it and thinking I don't see much improvement from them, and I see improvement from other sides, and actually I see some other sides getting worse, so it kind of levels out to me to about the same position.
One of them being one team that has been in the Premier League for quite some time. In your 18th place, Harry?
Yeah. I've got Wolves.
Ooh.
I mean, Wolves are an interesting one because I've been quite down on them for a few years now, and I think they had one season where they were sort of quite good and were flirting with sort of top 6, top 7, ended up finishing 10th. Last year they were very, very poor pre-World Cup. I think they were rock bottom or certainly near the bottom of the table. Lopetegui came in and let's have it right, like he saved them, really. They were good at home, they edged a lot of tight games at home, they kind of relied on their home form. I've said that 3 times there, just to kind of hammer the point home there, but They were strong at home, they obviously were solid. He looks like he's going to go, if not before the first game. It doesn't look like he's long for the job. Obviously they haven't really signed anyone, they've lost Ruben Neves to Saudi Arabia, they've lost Connor Cody's gone to Leicester, which I know he's sort of not been great. He wasn't there last season, but that's leadership. Collins has gone to Brentford. I just look at their squad. The goals have been a problem for a few years now. And I know Jimenez hasn't been scoring, but they've not replaced him really since he obviously had that awful injury. I suppose there's the guy they signed last season who obviously done his ACL before the season started, who we've not had a look at. Maybe he adds something to their attack, but I'm really struggling with Wolves, guys. I think it's going to be a really tricky season for them if it kind of plays out the way I'm expecting.
The only reason Wolves stay up for me, I have them 17th, is because there are 3 worse teams. That's it.
Yeah.
But losing so many players and...
It's totally disputable, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that they're struggling.
Yeah, real danger.
Wolves for me, yeah, I can't really disagree with any of those points, but I look at their team and I just see like I don't know if it's just the names that are catching my eye. They have a lot of names, and you're like, there's like you sort of half rate every one of their players. You're like, oh, he's decent. So there's like this potential in there that if they unlocked it, they could get like they'd be, well, I won't say top half, but they'd be safe in 11th or 12th. Like, is it Cunha they signed for? Is it 45
They've
million?
converted his loan. They converted his loan and converted Traore's loan.
Yeah.
To permanence.
But like the money for 44 million for Cunha, which is just crazy money. Considering that we're not that fussed on him.
Yeah.
He could have come to Chelsea for that money. And be as but what one great deal they've done is they brought Matt Doherty back, and we all like to see that.
And that's why you have them in?
I have them. Where do I have them? I have them in 16th.
Who's 17th?
17th. Well, I haven't covered my. I have Bournemouth getting relegated.
Oh,
yeah, I need to talk about my 18th as well.
That's controversial.
That's very controversial. Okay.
I didn't think I'd be saying that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, George. Yeah. Who's your final relegated team?
Yeah, my final relegated team is not Wolves. They're in 16th for me. My final relegated team is Nottingham Forest.
Okay.
Same reasons as pretty much last year. Obviously, not going to be dead last as I predicted last year. People absolutely berated me for it. I don't think they were particularly good from the games I watched them in. I don't think they played particularly great football. That everyone was hyping them up to do so. They've added players. They've not really taken too many players out, other than the loans. They've not sort of renegotiated. Their team is far too big to manage. We've seen it at Chelsea that just is not viable for any manager. So I really see them struggling to manage that team. I also don't think the quality's really there. Gibbs White is fine. I still don't get the hype. Their defenders I think are grossly overrated in terms of Aurier and looking at
I think that's a terrible take. I agree with you with the squad size. However, I look at them and go, they done all their business last year, and they managed to stay up. And they've got a great
business wasn't good.
They've got a great manager, but it's like Chelsea. It's like there's too many players, and you can make the case there still are too many players. But I back them to get rid of, like, probably not on good deals, but get rid of a lot of the deadwood there. I see quality in this squad. I like Brennan Johnson's if he stays. Anthony Elanga is good. Awanini, who we didn't really get to see an awful lot of. Gibbs White, I think he's good. He's came off a great under 21s. Was it Euros? Lee Carsley, Irish international manager of that. Just sort of drop that in there. Fingers crossed. And Nico Williams. Danilo, who was that Brazilian guy who came through at the end and looked quite exciting. I think the back line is good. Felipe really impressed me when he against Chelsea. I back them that they've got a much more settled squad now. Like they'll have worked out who they want to keep, who is good enough, and Cooper is a great manager. I have them 7th. No, I have them in 12th.
12th
position, Nottingham Forest.
So one thing I'd counter on this, Fergal, is I think when you're down the bottom of the table, momentum is a huge factor, especially the first 5 games. They've got Arsenal, Man United, and Chelsea in their first 5 games. Like, yes, they've got Sheffield United and Burnley, but they've scored 2 or 3 goals in pre-season. They haven't scored in the last 4, and one of them is Leeds as well, who are absolutely dreadful. So I don't know how they haven't scored against them. They look, to me, they're just an underwhelming side that everyone seems to see something. I don't. I don't see the potential and the quality that other people do. But yeah, I just don't see it. Especially if teams around them are improving, and I think teams that struggled last year, like Everton and West Ham, have man for man better teams and better quality players. So I just see them. I see them struggling. I see them going down. But in that 18th spot, it's not going to be a bottom of the league. So
I don't.
They are lacking an Irishman, which is hard to do with how many players they have.
Yeah.
I feel like George. I see where he's coming from. I again just don't see how it holds up with Everton 12th. I just don't see how.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room.
The front,
anyway.
I think they've got great quality in their front line.
Yeah, they're much better than Everton. Much better. They're gonna score.
Yeah.
They might score like between 1.5 and 2 times goals that Everton are gonna score. Anyway, so okay, relegated teams then for George. You have Luton, Sheffield United, and Nottingham Forest. Just to your cap a little bit here. Harry has Sheffield United in 20th, Luton and Wolves. And then Sheffield, Luton and Bournemouth for Fergal. Bournemouth. I need you to tell me more about Bournemouth. I have Luton, Everton, Sheffield United. 20th to 18th. Why Bournemouth 18th?
It's just Bournemouth, isn't it?
Have you done your research on Anthony Iraola?
Yeah, well, you know what? We'll come on to that now. I wasn't happy. They've got rid of a short king in Gary O'Neill, who done a fantastic job, and they brought in some tall fucker from Spain. No, it's not on. I think it's just pure discrimination. I think it's I think that's what it is. And honestly, that was the deciding factor for me. I was weighing it up. Was like, do I not? And then I remembered that, and I goes, Bournemouth will regret the day they sacked the short king, and that's why. And you can bring in your fancy pants Spanish manager. Sure, how many times have we seen that fail? How many times is that not going well for a side? It's a much of a muchness with some of the other sides. I like Solanke. In fairness, it'd be nice to see David Brooks back.
Yeah.
The side doesn't totally do it for me, but then I really didn't see them staying up last season either. But they haven't really improved upon it, and yeah, they just don't do much for me. It's just,
so
but
let's
mainly because they got rid of a short king.
Let's keep talking about Bournemouth because we have two different camps here. We have George and Fergal. George, you have Bournemouth in what position?
17th, yeah. So 17th. I think they'll stay up, but yeah.
Nothing to add, really.
Look, I think they've brought in a good manager, but one, the Premier League's a completely different beast. Two, they haven't added to a team that I think everyone predicted to go down last season. I think Philip Billing might keep them up, and Solanke if he stays fit. They're the two players that I would take out to go. They can really, really help them. Neto's a good keeper as well, but it's probably more of an emotional thing putting Forest down rather than Bournemouth staying up. I think there's 3 worse teams than them in those 3, but to be honest, my Wolves 16th, Bournemouth 17th, Nottingham Forest 18th. I see all 3 of them as last day of the season.
Now, here's where I struggle with this, because last season they finished 15th, and they added Hamid Junior Traore as an attacking midfielder. He's he's actually pretty good. Justin Kluivert, that's incredible depth. And Milos Karakas at left back. I feel like if you look at his squad, though? I feel like it would say what?
Is Kluivert any good?
Yeah, he's decent. Like
I swear he's been to about 3 clubs in 4 years.
Yeah,
and
he's been on a lot of loans.
It's always been a downgrade. Like
he's been on a lot of loans, but I think he will have found his level like pretty comfortably. I think he'll probably contribute between 10 and 15 goals, 5 goals, 7 assists, something like that.
What?
Yeah.
All competitions.
Yeah, all competitions.
You better hope he scores a hatful in the League Cup.
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't find it outrageous that he would get 5 goals in the league.
Did you say 11 assists?
7.
7. Oh, I thought
yeah.
I was saying
The 10 to 15 region goal contributions, all competitions, is what I see from Justin Kluivert if he starts, because they also have Marcus Savanier, who had an excellent season with them last season.
Oh, right. Well, you add in that caveat. Right, okay.
I will. But they actually have some good depth, except in the double pivot in midfield. This is a bit of a problem. I think they need one more player there, possibly, because if they have an injury, it's curtains.
We're not having Kilkenny. No problems there.
Yeah, sure. They're fine. I think the other thing about Bournemouth is that they really improved on the manager. Bournemouth are going to be fun. Bournemouth are going to be very fun. So Iraola was at Rayo Vallecano. They beat Barcelona and Real Madrid. What they do super well is off the ball, just work rate, but it's not like Leeds United swarming. It's actually very organized in terms of who to press when. And then on the attack, they're pretty direct, but what they do super well is they somehow overload one side, and then you see a switch coming to someone like a late runner from the right, and then that runner would score. Because he's one-on-one. So I feel like Bournemouth is going to be... Obviously, they're going to have to be a little bit more defensive, and they're going to get... they're worse than the rest of the teams, and they're not going to have a lot of possession. But when they win it back, they're going to break very quickly, and I think you're going to see a lot of one-on-one chances. And it just depends on whether their strikers can score these chances. But if they convert a good amount of them, they'll be absolutely fine. I have Bournemouth 12th. Because of this,
12.
I have Bournemouth 12. But again, it's the same as everybody else in that bottom half. Anyone in those can get relegated. That's real.
Ali,
I'm just a massive fan of Iraola.
Quit with the caveats. He's coming at, they'd like them 12, but then they might also get relegated. And Justin Kluivert, he might get 15 goals and become the best winger in the best, but he might just not start at all and might not get on the pitch and just go out and loan somewhere.
What I know for sure is that Bournemouth will be very solid, absolutely fine, will not go down, and finish just below the bottom, the mid-table. So, upper bottom half. There you go. Okay. I feel like that's what's gonna happen. Harry, where do you have them?
So you're saying they're definitely not going down?
They are definitely not going down. Bournemouth are definitely not going down.
That's more like okay.
On the record.
On the record.
See, if we make it lucky enough, if Bournemouth do still, and we are lucky enough to make it into their edit of everybody writing them off, Ali might be in there at the end with they're definitely not going down, and you're wearing Bournemouth colours as well. You're giving yourself a great chance there.
No. I lied. I have Bournemouth 11th.
Yeah, the police say you don't have them 11th.
Yeah, I do.
You actually haven't.
Wow.
That is.
I remembered it long. Harry, you go for it. You have him closer to me than these two, I think.
I've sort of split the difference, really, mate, between you and George. I've got them 14th.
More reasonable,
I think
than George.
I like their attackers, as you've kind of already mentioned. I think they've got good depth in the wide areas. I think the concern would be the defence, but then I also think that you need the ability to win games. Like, if if you look at teams down the bottom, you'd much rather lose, the vast majority of games, but be able to sort of win 10 or 11 than just draw a load. And when I look at them and compare them to someone like Everton might lose less games, but I just don't see them being able to score enough goals to win enough games in a sort of direct comparison to Bournemouth. So they just excite me a little bit more. We've already spoken about the manager. I actually thought they played some pretty good stuff last season, Bournemouth at times. So, yeah, I think they're I've got them 14th. I think there's, 6 worse teams than them, simply put. So,
lovely. I agree with everything you just said.
But you got
now.
Can I suggest that we do Burnley next? Because I'm interested to see where everybody else has Burnley. I have Burnley just staying up.
Just saying. Okay. Anywhere between like 13th, 14th, and 17th, 18th is not an outrageous pick for Burnley.
Yeah,
they're hard. They're hard to predict.
One thing I'm interested in, which was the downfall of Leicester, sadly Southampton, and who's the other team with then? Leeds. Yeah, Leeds as well, actually. The goalkeeper. And they've gone for a risky business of signing a young goalkeeper who is a really high ceiling, but has just had experience in League One. Sounds familiar? Yeah. Yes, my
from City as well, right?
Yeah, from City as well. Yeah. And last season it was a big issue for the teams that went down, is that they just didn't have a good enough goalkeeper, really. And I do wonder if history will repeat itself there. But there's a lot of talent in that team as well, and a lot of depth to it, and a lot of Irish. Which is all. Josh Cullen, who's going to be, I'm really interested to see how he steps up. He's solid for Ireland, but see how he steps up in the Premier League. And then Darragh O'Shea, I think he's ready for this. I think he'll be a starter by the end of the season.
Okay. What can you tell us about Michael Obafemi?
Obafemi, he has his moments. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets transferred out in January though. With the because they've brought in players ahead of him. He didn't even get into the team because they brought him in January last season. Yeah, I think so. And then but he didn't really get into that team. And I think Ashley Barnes was ahead of him. And
they also brought in another striker, Zeki Amdouni, 12 goals and 24.490s last season with Basel.
Exactly. So I actually don't know if Obafemi's in their plans, but he's a good really good sub to have, I'd say, for a side of Burnley's level. See where Veghorst ends up as well. But yeah, Obafemi has his moments, but he's been disappointing for Ireland as well, so I can't really hype him up too much, unfortunately.
George, where?
Yeah, I've got Burnley 15th. I think it's just the perfect position for them, between 18th and like you said, wherever it may be for themselves mid-table. So yeah, it's just a matter of can Vincent Kompany play his style of play when he's under the cosh, when he's got superior teams. That's to remain to be seen. Inexperienced manager in a lot of ways, so it's a bit of a wild card. I just think in terms of the feeling around the club, it's probably a lot better than the teams I put below them in terms of Wolves, Bournemouth, and well, maybe not Forest, but and then the two other promoted teams that are just not as good in terms of quality, and that showed in the Championship. So yeah, they're 15th for me. Could easily get relegated. Don't see them going much higher than 13th, 14th, but you never know in the Premier League.
13th, 14th is right about where Harry has them.
Yeah. Not loads to add, if I'm honest. It was one of those where I kind of put everyone else on there and they sort of fell into place for me, really. Kind of, as George mentioned, they were very good in the Championship. I think obviously Company's pretty well regarded as a manager. The only thing I would sort of push back on is I think he sold us a dud in Sambi Lukonga. I don't know quite what he was seeing there. Next Patrick Vieira. And they're getting linked with him again, so we'll sort of see if he kind of follows through with that one. But I think they'll be all right. I think they've got that Premier League experience. I think, albeit it'll be a different style that you see from them compared to what came previously. But again, it's one of those where I think the bottom half, as we said at the start, like there's a real cluster of kind of 6-7 teams that you're looking at. Honestly, could finish in any order really, and they're in that kind of cluster for me. So.
They're in the cluster. Remember when I said Bournemouth 12th and then corrected myself and put them 11th? It was because Burnley are 12th. I'm pretty bullish about Bournemouth. I feel like they're going to surprise a lot of people with just how comfortable the players that they have. Burnley. I think people are going to be surprised by the quality of the players because people haven't seen them yet, but they were so comfortable in the Championship last season that it gives me Fulham vibes. Like I think they're going to be the Fulham of this season, where they just start really well. Let's see what their first 5 games are. They actually start with Man City, which is going to be difficult, but Luton, Villa, and Tottenham, I wouldn't be surprised if they get results in 2 of these 3. Certainly against Luton, you expect them to win. And then Forest, that can be a win. So good start, and they carried it on, in my opinion. The interesting thing is that they don't have any other left backs apart from Charlie Taylor, which is a bit worrisome. Maybe Nathan Redmond is going to cover there or something. I have no idea.
Shea can play left back.
Shea can play left back, okay.
A very defensive left back, but he can't do it.
Like Joe Gomez at Liverpool. Better than Joe Gomez at Liverpool. I wouldn't be surprised. West Ham. I'm keen to talk about West Ham because they haven't done anything, and that's why
I'll talk about West Ham. Yeah. Basically, we haven't spoken really in a couple of months, have we? And obviously, the Declan Rice saga played out in that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. West Ham, in my opinion, and I'm not just saying this because they dragged the saga out, and it was, to be honest with you, quite stressful as a fan, and I'm sure for the club, but they've not gone about this the right way because it's obviously very high profile. It's ended up being the biggest English transfer ever, biggest transfer fee paid for an English player, and that's great and all, like good for them. They can wear it as a badge of honour, add it to the trophy cabinet, blah blah blah. But the problem once you do that, and this is what they're finding out now, is absolutely no one is rushing to give you a good deal when you want their players, because they know that and they made such a big deal about this bastard payment structure. They want this much of it up front, so they can't even use the old we'll do it in installments excuse, because guess what, lads, you've dragged the deal out and basically had our trousers down. That's great and all, but these things, they sort of come around. Anyway, they haven't made any signings yet. That's a big part of it, is they're not getting fees that kind of reflect the sort of players they're trying to buy. And albeit they don't want to get ripped off by clubs they're trying to buy from, but it's leaving them in a really awkward position to start the season. Yeah. I do think the sort of overall quality of their squad is still there. I know they've lost their best player, but I think someone like Lucas Paqueta will step up. I think you've got Bowen still there. They do need a centre forward, I think. I think sort of Scamacca's gone today, and Antonio sort of being linked with a move away. But even if he stays, I still think they need another striker. But they've got good enough players, I think, to sort of not... I think last season was a really poor performance from them to be anywhere near the relegation battle, given where they were in the sort of previous seasons before that. I think they're obviously contending in the Europa League, which maybe they go out of quite quickly on this occasion, given how much they struggled with the Conference League, Premier League schedule last year. I'd be surprised if they sort of took it deep again. But if they do, that's kind of an added challenge. I don't have a lot more to add. I just thought I'd add that they were, they're pretty stupid. I think if you compare what they did to the way Villa went about replacing Grealish, where they'd essentially signed, it was Danny Ings, Bailey, and there was one other player, Buendia. They'd signed them already, and then they sort of agreed to deal with Man City, and you had kind of already replaced him before he went. And I'm not saying that you have to sign 5 players to replace Declan Rice, but it's just a case of making a massive deal about getting this transfer fee kind of only gets you so far, I think, and it's sort of proven to be the case. And the funny part about this now is they're getting linked with trying to sign Balogun off us, which, well, I don't think we'll be rushing to give them a good deal, that's for sure, if there's any truth in that whatsoever.
Can I go next on West Ham? Because you touched on the squad there and their depth on what they need strikers, definitely. It's such a thin squad. It's the same problem Liverpool have to start the season. Spoiler, Liverpool aren't doing well. It's such a thin squad. They can't start that way. And they have the first 5 games are difficult. So you got Bournemouth. If you were to ask me what the outcome of this is, draw or Bournemouth win to start the season. If they start that way, we're recording on August 7th. So, quite a lot can happen for the rest of the week. Don't know. But Chelsea, Brighton, Luton, West Ham could win that easily. And then Man City. That's a really tricky start. And I fear for them in that regard. I feel like if they don't start off well in these, and they still have this they have disagreements between the board and David Moyes about who they want to bring in as well, and there doesn't seem to be a cohesive transfer strategy.
Yeah, the technical director.
The technical director and David Moyes. I just don't see this going well at all. And with the Thursday Sunday schedule and everything, I just feel like they have a first half of the season where relegation is a question. And then they finish 16th with maybe a 5-point difference or something. I just don't see it going well at all.
I hear what you're both saying. Obviously, Harry, yours was 12th, was it?
Yeah, I've got them 12th. I just think that they've got better players than the team below them. I mean, looking at their squad, I agree with Ali. It's not a deep squad. I just looking at kind of the 11. If they can keep most of it fit, I just think it kind of is better than a lot of the other 11s.
And they are going to sign players. They have 120 million. Plus whatever else money they have.
You would think they will, but it's been really slow that I'm just where?
Yeah, as Harry said, it's such poor planning not to have because they knew they were going to get around 100 million for Declan Rice. Just go out and get the replacement. I think what they were. It looks like they were going to try and get Polinia from Fulham, and then that was scuppered whenever he had his injury. But you should be more prepared and have a backup plan. But then they're going in for Harry Maguire, where centre back, in my opinion, is one of their stronger positions. I don't feel like that's an immediate thing that they need to strengthen. And Harry Maguire definitely suit the David Moyes team, but you're going to get him big wages. Big wages. It's not going to be a cheap transfer fee or a super cheap transfer fee, and then he's an older player. It's not going to have much resale. To me, whenever you haven't got too many young centre backs, that looks like an opportunity. If you are going to strengthen in centre back, try and get somebody young there, because you're just going to have to replace all of these guys very, very soon. And then midfield, well, they're going to get somebody, but I haven't been keeping up to date with who they've been linked with. But
the thing I find with West Ham is, I agree with pretty much echo all of what you guys said.
George. Sorry, before you carry on, Fergal's predicted finish. What's it for West Ham? Fergal. Where do you see West Ham finishing?
I have them finishing 11th.
Outrageous.
Just because of the strength of the first team, similar to Harry, but it just with how they where were they ranked actually? They're ranked 10th on the amount of wages they have, wage spend. And so my perspective of them being disappointing is coming from like they should all the hype that they have, like winning a European trophy.
Yeah,
they just should be kicking on even more and just be a better run club than they are. It always seems like one step forward, two steps back with West Ham. Going back to like the Payet season and all that, they just never seem to capitalize on a good season. But I still think that they should be solid enough, and they'll probably bring in 3 players and those 3 players should all be solid.
Okay.
The thing I found with West Ham is they've got poor depth. Yes, they will sign players, and on top of that, they've got the attraction of European football. They probably will have to pay a premium, like Harry said. One, because they're in the Europa League, so anyone who's got European football has to pay a premium. And then secondly, obviously the Arsenal situation. They do need a striker and a centre mid, but apart from that, I would say they've got a top 10 team. Not just their first 11. I'd say their backups for all of their defence is sound. Their 2 fullbacks on both sides are sound. Their centre backs are all, I would say, competent. I'd say Kurt Zuma for me is pushing for best of the rest when he's not kicking cats. And so in terms of their team, they just need a CDM and a striker. I like Danny Ings as well. I really like Danny Ings as a player, and I think he can regain that form. I don't think he's a player that relies on a great deal of pace, so won't have dropped off because of his injuries and age. And a decent manager. So I've got them in 11th on the premise that they will add to their team. On the back of Rice. I haven't really considered Europa League being a factor in terms of just a number of games. I don't think it's I think it's overestimated a little bit. European games. I think when that gets said about these sort of clubs like Leicester and West Ham and probably will be said about Newcastle, what I find is that the squad itself is actually just not a European squad, and therefore they've overachieved, and the next season they perceive to underachieve, i.e. not hit Europe or anywhere near Europe, is really just for me a levelling out to where they actually should be. So I think 11th is a realistic position for West Ham, and I actually don't think they should be disappointed if it is between 11th and 15th. If they're in a relegation scrap, it's red flags because of the high wage and ambitions. But I don't think they need to be pushing for Europe this season.
No, absolutely not. I think the Conference League has given them credit in the bank for the fans enough to go, okay, let's build on this rather than. And that's why I feel like it's going to be such a disappointing season for West Ham, because again they won't be able to, because their transfer strategy is non-existent. And I'm doing it under the premise of they won't sign anyone significant. They won't add anyone that can actually win them points. So I do worry.
They're currently getting linked to Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire, as I was saying, and like people are making the point that like a midfield of Thomas Souček and Scott McTominay. Pakatala definitely is the star quality in that, but it's not the most inspiring. Like you need somebody to be able to feed the ball into Pakatala to then get the best out of him.
Exactly. Well, Maguire is a okay ball player if you actually play him as a left-sided centre back.
Which is play him in midfield.
Play midfield. Just play him. He's a deep line playmaker. Let him pop it about. Fulham. Quite keen to talk about Fulham now, because it's been a dramatic summer. I I don't know. A very unknown quantity, this, because we don't know what's happening with Mitrovic. Marco Silva is a bit unsettled there for very briefly during the summer series. Don't know. I have them 15th, but it's not based on anything apart from Mitrovic or Raul Jimenez, a bit of a downgrade. But like, I see them having a really good season again. Not top half, but you know.
Is the Mitrovic deal not done then?
Mitrovic's deal not done. Not yet.
Okay.
And then there's Calvin Bassey, which
I've been ruling him. I've just considered him gone. I thought somebody gave it the here we go. So I just assumed it was a done deal. I
think he will go. I'm giving them 15th under the premise that he is going, or at least not having as good a season because he's unhappy because the transfer didn't go through or whatever. So like,
I have them 14th. I could. I actually think I might be a bit too high in hindsight now.
Interesting.
Yeah,
because of like what I was looking at them and then I was comparing the teams around them, and if you take out Polina and take out Mitrovic, Polina because of the injury, their team drops off considerably, in my opinion. Willian also might be on the move in a really strange
situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel for them. If things go badly, I think Fulham could get relegated this season.
Yeah,
that's not a bad shot.
No, I totally agree.
And Marco Silva, he's not the most stable manager. He's not like, in fairness to him, he's turned down an awful lot of money. So far anyway. So credit to him for that. To not go to Saudi Arabia, but Marco Silva, when the going gets tough, he tends to jump ship, and find a nice landing spot in another Premier League team. So I'll be interested to see how, if things don't start well and things do turn sour, will he stick about, or could it all go sour, or just all go to pot?
I'm interested that you're looking down for like Fulham 15th or 14th and down. For me, I've got them 14th, but looking up. So I don't see them dropping below 15th. I mean, they've got a good manager. Yeah, it's a little bit curious. I think that's a fair point. But I think that Marco Silva as manager, I think maybe not underrated now, but when he was at Fulham at the start of last season was criminally underrated. And I said that last season, that I think they had a better manager and that, than the rest of the bottom three, even though predicting them to go down. And I think you saying, Jimenez is a downgrade on Mitrovic is slightly harsh, truthfully. I mean, he's a really good striker. Yes, he's got.
Let's look at the goals.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. He's gone for 3 seasons since the head injury. To be fair, like
it's the head injury, but
a killer. But
I think that's
explainable.
I think that's a red. It's explainable, but I think it's a red herring. I think he is still.
It's not a red herring. How can it be a red herring?
There is a world. It's not a red herring. I'm baffled. What? But
it's like it feels a bit cruel saying it, but like he.
But like, there is a world, to be fair, where Raul Jimenez.
He's bad at heading. Is that what you meant to say?
Wow. There is a world where Raul Jimenez gets back in form, like before COVID form, and I really hope that happens because the way he dropped off is very cruel. But I don't know.
I can see it.
It's a big task.
I think maybe. Yeah,
Mitrovic got 50. What did he get? 15 goals last season. Jimenez is not getting 15 goals. There's no way. On God,
a lot of them would penalties. A lot of them would penalties.
Score, mate.
I know. But
and he actually missed quite a few penalties.
I'm a big backer.
Well, Jimenez has 10 goals over the last 2 seasons.
That's okay.
There you go.
That's fine. 10 goals over 2 seasons is a fine return for it.
It's not. It's terrible as a striker.
It's not for the bottom half. It's not. It's for bottom half striker.
Bottom half teammate.
But he didn't play that much.
He's not going from Wolves to a great side, is he? I think on Fulham, I've got him 16th for two. The reasons are twofold. Firstly, you mentioned about goalkeepers earlier, Fergal. Bernd Leno was one of the best goalkeepers in the league last year for Fulham. He really he was excellent. And I'm not saying he'll just drop off a cliff, but part of why they performed as well as they did was because he was excellent for them. And obviously Mitrovic was, chipped in with whatever it was, 15 goals. They massively overperformed their metrics last year. Like the most of any side in the entire league. It was the biggest disparity. The metrics they put up suggest they should have been far closer to actually being in a relegation battle than what they ended up being. They got off to a hot start and they were just way clear of it by Christmas. I don't see that happening this time. I think they'll be far closer to it. And there's a few, as you say, rumblings beneath the surface. You've got the manager, you've got Mitrovic is unhappy, Willian's unhappy, potentially he might go. The Palhinha situation looks like he's going to stay now, but he's obviously starting the season injured. I just think there's a few things there, combined with the fact that I actually don't think they were that good last season. They overachieved with where they finished, but I was never as big on them as kind of their league position at various points in the season was far higher than it should have been, given the performances they were putting in. It's the truth, George.
I agree. That's why I've got them. That's why I've got them in 14th. I think they're 14th looking.
I don't know why you're looking up then. Maybe because of their performance last year, where they finished on paper, but.
No, but not even that.
I've changed them. I put them 15th now. I've moved them down a place.
I've sold you on it.
Yeah, I've even thought myself in that. We're to replace the goals, to try and replace Mitrovic's goals is they literally have not done it.
Vinicius is a good player. Vinicius, as a striker, Vinicius.
I don't think those two get 15 goals between them. I'd be amazed.
Yeah, they do. By the way, Raul Jimenez scored in the most recent friendly against Hoffenheimer. Just put that goal in there.
Hoffenheim, it's not the Killian Murphy German team.
Hoffenheim. I've had them right there. But anyway, I don't think. We've all got them 14th, 15th. I just think. I don't see that. I just don't think they're worse than Wolves, Bournemouth, Forest, Sheffield United, and Luton, and therefore. And I don't think they're actually close to them. Therefore, they should be looking up at Crystal. Well, I've sort of alluded to my next pick above them, but the likes of Everton, West Ham.
I think Wolves have a better defence and midfield than Fulham. If once Palhinha comes back, Fulham's midfield gets a hell of an upgrade.
Yeah, they were really reliant on him last year.
Until that point. I think Wolves have a better defence and midfield, and then the attack definitely have two better wingers, and it's just a battle of the shit strikers. So I think Wolves. I think Wolves look a hell of a lot stronger than Fulham.
Crystal Palace, you alluded to it, George. Where do you have the finishing?
Yeah, I've got the one above Fulham at 13th, and that I think that concludes my 11th to 20th. I could be wrong if I'm not a team, but yeah, I mean, Crystal Palace 13th is a perfect place for them because they're boring. I mean, they've got some exciting forward players, but they're never going to push Europe, and they're never going to get relegated. So that automatically makes them boring. Even though they've got an exciting squad. Yeah, Roy Hodgson as well. I mean, man, let him retire. Just let him just watch from the sidelines. I think they must be working with him on contingency plans. If they're not, I don't know.
You have to have a contingency plan for Roy Hodgson because he might not make it to the end of the season.
Yeah, it's a horrible thing to say.
In more ways than one. God love him.
Touch wood, by the way. Yeah. Being awful. But
Hugh Edwards would announce that. Well, he wouldn't anymore, actually.
No.
But
am I keeping this?
They've got an interesting squad, but they're a boring team.
Sure.
boring position in the league.
Crystal Palace for me. I'm actually depending on if Elise goes. I think they are solid, but again, if they replace Zaha, and I don't think they've any fears of getting relegated, but I do wonder if it might get a wee bit close at some point. If Elise goes, it depends on who they bring in. In fairness, their transfer business of recent has been very good, but I don't think it could potentially go worse than what people are thinking. But I do like their squad as it stands.
I do too.
And Eze looks like he's coming into it red hot, and we all love that.
Yeah, I love that. I think they finished 13th. Again, it's boring because they're not like fighting for anything Europe, but they're not fighting for anything relegation either, and they're just there. But they have very fun players. Get a striker though, and you'll be much better. Like if you get a striker that can score goals, 15 a season, they can have a chance of entering the top half.
Should have bought Raul Jimenez, right?
They should have. Bargain 4 million. That's an absolute steal.
No. But yeah, I have them 13th. Harry, anything to add there? Where do you have them?
I don't have anything to add. I've got them 11th, and I mean, I'm looking at the squad now. Like, I do like it. I sort of, again, it's one of those where this bottom half is so congested, and I've just gone, chuck them there. Like, I like, probably half a dozen of their players. I think they've got some good attacking players. It'd be interesting to see how they do replace Zaha, as you've said. Again, it's difficult to feel that strongly about them because they kind of will hover in and around that kind of between 11th and 14th every season. And even last year, like, they flirted with relegation for a bit, but then they just end up nowhere near it. But they also end up nowhere near kind of pushing for Europe, which is what you'd expect. It's just, look, not to discredit them as a club. Like, I think that they're doing great for kind of the level they're at to be a solid, like, established Premier League team. After this is their 10th season, I think, in the Premier League in a row. Like, fair play to them on that. It's just one of those, like, you, every season when you're predicting where Palace will finish, it's kind of probably one of the narrowest dispersions because they do just kind of end up in a very similar spot on the table every year. So, not much more to add.
I think that wraps it up. The interesting thing here is that we all agree on 11th to 20th. We have all
and just a different order.
The top half and the top half and the bottom half and the bottom half. We agree there.
That says, though, like, does that say that the bottom half is just really poor in quality and we can't see any kind of breaking into the top 10? Or is it sort of the case that there actually are, maybe 8 or 9 really, really good teams? Like, I'll be honest, not to sort of spoil too much for tomorrow, like, 9 of them, I'd be absolutely amazed if any weren't in the top half. Like, I'd be absolutely gobsmacked. There's one I sort of am looking at and thinking, they could, and we'll come to it tomorrow. But like, the others,
same situation here.
I'd be gobsmacked if any weren't in the top 10, and probably top 9, if I'm honest.
Yeah, so. Exact same situation. I think we'll be in agreement on a lot of those tomorrow. But it should be interesting because we have quite a few differences in a couple of teams. But wait, did I ever talk about Nottingham Forest? Doesn't matter. I have the 14th. Right. This is the end of the bottom half. Tomorrow, which is Thursday for you guys, Tuesday for us, will be the top half. So keep your eyes peeled for that. It's great to be back, boys. It's great to be back. It's a good feeling to record again.
Absolutely. Do you want to do one quick run through of each of our teams, Ali, if you've got it written down? Just a quick fire.
I got it. So we will start with... I'm going to go with Harry first. Harry has 20th to 11th. The 3 relegated teams are Sheffield United, Luton, Wolves. Then Everton, Fulham, Forest. Then Bournemouth, Burnley, West Ham, and Crystal Palace. That is Harry. Whereas, George, you, sir, have Luton bottom, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest going down, Bournemouth just staying up, which it's interesting. Wolves, and then Burnley and Fulham And then Crystal Palace, Everton in 12th, which I think is the wildest prediction out of all. Wait, 10, 40 predictions. And West Ham in 11th. And then
I updated mine, so mine's in the chat.
yours is in the chat. You read it off then. I can't be bothered to go back to the chat.
I have Sheffield United, Luton Town, Bournemouth getting relegated, Burnley in 17th, just staying up, Fulham, Wolves, Crystal Palace, Everton, Nottingham Forest in 12th, West Ham in 11th.
Everton 13th. It's weird, man. It's weird. We'll see. I have Luton 20th, Everton 19th, and I feel very strongly about this. Sheffield United 18th. So these are the 3 go down. Wolves, West Ham, Fulham, Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace, Burnley, Bournemouth. Burnley, Bournemouth are going to be 2 of the fun, when the week comes where they play each other, we call it like sort of a hipster derby, that sort of thing. They're going to be fun to watch. Yeah, so that's our 20th to 11th. That's the bottom half. And then tomorrow is going to be the much better top half. I think we all agree. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. Thank you guys. I'm glad to be back. It's a good feeling to get back with you guys. We'll do it again tomorrow. So yeah, I'll see you in just over 22 hours, I think.
Nice one.
Nice.
Look forward to it.
Have a lovely evening, everyone. Look forward to
Thank
the
you very much.
1 to 10 tomorrow. 1 to 10. Yes. All right. Bye. Cheers. Have a lovely time. Oh, let us know what you think about the new colors and music and logo and everything. Yeah, I think we put a lot of Kareem put in a lot of effort there. So thanks, Kareem. Appreciate it. Looks clean in my opinion. So yeah, more of that this coming season. Say goodbye.
Yeah.
Cheers.